It is good to be here this morning, and indeed it's even necessary that we are here this morning because, as many of you know, our country, our democracy is in trouble. The rich are getting richer. The poor and the middle class are getting more desperate every day. We hear the news where workers are getting laid off, and at the same time, the take-home pay for corporate executives and elite is getting bigger and bigger. So it's good that we are here this morning and organizing and rallying to take back our country, to take back our state, to take back the political process from those who would put profits and greed above people. So it is indeed good that we are here. I am, of course, a pastor, a religious leader, if you will, and I think one of the concerns that I have is that many of us progressives have not engaged the religious community. We have ceded religious questions over to the right, and I think that we are paying dearly for that. And so I would like to see us begin to engage the religious left more and more into the process of taking back our country. The religious traditions tell us that it matters how we treat those who are poor. It matters how we treat children. It matters how we treat the elderly. It matters how we treat those who are sick. It matters how we treat those who are immigrants in our society. It matters. It matters to God, and it ought to matter to each and every one of us. And it matters because we are all accountable to one another. Ultimately, in the final analysis, we are all responsible to one another. We're all a part of the same big family. And that's what I want to talk about a little here this morning. I want to talk about the family. I want to talk about family values because I'm a family value kind of person. Family values are important to me, and I understand family values are important to some of our politicians, some of which occupy political seats within our Senate here in our country. So I want to talk about family values because, to me, family values is very important. The minimum wage, to me, is a family value. We ought to pay every worker in this country, guarantee every worker in this country a minimum wage. It's a family value. And if we care about families, if we care about children, if we care about working mothers and working fathers, then we ought to pass the minimum wage. And we ought to pass it here around the country. We did it here in Philadelphia, as you heard. They said it couldn't be done, but we showed them in Harrisburg that it could be done, and we got the minimum wage passed, and we need to have the minimum wage passed across this country. It's just family values. It's good values. Healthcare. Healthcare is a family value. We need to make sure that every American has access to affordable healthcare. It's not a matter of just good health policy. It's not a matter of just making sure that all of our people have adequate health care, but it's a matter of family values. And if we care about our families, if we care about children, if we care about parents, if we care about our elderly folks, then we'll make sure that every American in this country has access to health care, and we ought to do it. It's something that ought to be done. We ought to make sure, of course, that every child has access to education. That's a family value. It's not just a good academic policy, it's not just good education policy, but it's something that we ought to do for every child because it's good family values. And when we do that, I think we'll be strengthening our country. When we do that, we'll be strengthening our families and we'll be strengthening our community because these are the kinds of values that matter. They matter to all of us, they matter to families, and they ought to matter to each and every person in this country. So those are the kinds of family values that we ought to be promoting in our country today. Now, I'm not the kind of person that likes to wear my religion on my sleeve. I believe that the best kind of religious witness is acts of love and mercy and justice to all of God's people. But there are those within the halls of power today who like to talk about how religious they are. They like to talk about how godly they are, how pious they are, how concerned they are about family values. But it's not by their words that you shall know them, but it's by their long and odious record that you will know. The same people, the same Republicans who are telling us that they are concerned about family values, the same people who tell us that they are concerned about working men and women in this country have not been able to pass a minimum wage law for the working people in this country. They won't do it. They haven't done it. They haven't done it since 1996, and they won't do it unless me and you vote them out. So it's time that we make our voices heard and pass a minimum wage law in our country. The same people, the same Republicans, the same people who tell us that they are concerned about the plight of our elderly in this country are constantly cutting back on the kinds of things that would benefit the elderly in this country. They're cutting back on Medicaid. They want to privatize Social Security. They want to leave our elderly people to the merciless forces of the market, and we shouldn't let them do it. We need to tell them that we're not going to allow them to be able to control the processes that guarantee minimum basic necessities for our elderly people. The same people, the same Republicans that tell us that no child ought to be left behind are constantly seeing to it that the monies that go for education are being cut, and those are not the kind of leaders that we want leading the next generation in our country. And the same Republicans, the same people that bemoan the crime in the streets, the same Republicans and leaders that tell us that we need law and order are the same leaders, the same Republicans who are in the back pockets of the gun lobby in this country. And we ought to tell them that enough is enough. We're going to take back our country from them. We're going to take back our streets. We're going to take back the halls of power from them. And the same leaders, the same people who are constantly telling us that they are concerned about the health of each and every American are constantly cutting back on funds such as Medicaid that go to benefit children who are living in poverty and goes to benefit many of our elderly people in our nursing homes. And we need to tell them that enough is enough.